Do you want a surefire way to win your fantasy basketball matchup this week? Here are the waiver wire targets you need to pay attention to for week 17 of the NBA fantasy basketball season. From the Chicago Bulls, Patrick Williams. Patrick Williams is just rostered in 43% of Yahoo leagues. Despite a lackluster performance against the Hornets last week, he's really been on a roll. Before last Thursday's stinker against the Hornets, he averaged 13.1 points per game. He shot 50.7 from the field, 40% from three-point range, and 88.2 from the free throw line. He also averaged 5.6 boards, 1.8 threes, 1.6 assists, and 0.9 steals. Let me throw in 0.9 blocks as well, and he's averaged 31.1 minutes per game. He's only in his third year, so he has tons of upside, and down the stretch, he could help you out to pursue that NBA fantasy championship. I'd like him to develop some consistency before looking at him as a long-term hold, but it's worth noting that he's producing career high averages in scoring, blocks, free throws, and minutes per game. He's worth an ad this week. Get yourself some Patrick Williams. Next up, from the Houston Rockets, Kenyon Martin Jr. He's rostered in 37% of Yahoo leagues, and over the past 12 games, he's averaging 14.4 points per game. From the field, he's shooting 56.8. From three, he's shooting 35.1. And from the free throw line, he's shooting 51.4, which is really stinky. He's also putting up 7.7 boards per game, 1.7 assists, and 1.1 threes. And that's all in about 30 minutes over the last 12 games. Listen, he struggles from the line and doesn't offer much in terms of steals or blocks. But the Rockets are banged up. Kevin Porter Jr., Jalen Green, and Jabari Smith are all dealing with injuries. Martin could have some short-term value in all formats. And if Eric Gordon is moved by the trade deadline, he may be able to maintain 12-team value rest of season. Get yourself some Kenyon Martin Jr. By the way, I'm Robin Marks from Game Pick Fantasy Basketball. You can connect with me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Game Pick Podcast. If you love fantasy sports, please consider subscribing, give this episode a like, and hit the bell to turn on notifications so you don't miss any of these fantasy gems. We release new episodes every single week. The next waiver wire ad we want to take a look at is Larry Nance Jr. It's worth noting that in week 17, the Pelicans only have 2 games this week, so be very careful when you pick him up. However, your man has 3 double-doubles back-to-back. I mean, back-to-back to back-to-back. He's averaging 9.4 points per game and 7.8 rebounds, 1.5 dimes, 1.1 steals, and 0.6 blocks in 24.8 minutes over the last 8 games. Listen, Nance usually plays better when Zion is on the floor, but Zion is approaching a return really soon. So this might be your opportunity to get ahead of the game and grabbing him. But again, pay attention to when they play because the Pelicans only have 2 games this week. Next up, from the New York Knicks, Immanuel Quickley. Immanuel Quickley is one of those guys that's been dropped, picked up all season. Currently, he's being rostered on 19.9% of ESPN leagues. Over the last 7 days, he's averaging 34.3 minutes per game, 12.7 points, 4.3 rebounds, and 4.7 assists. He'll be worth a flyer this week to see what he can do, but I'd consider picking up Immanuel Quickley. Next up, I want to talk about some trade deadline waiver wire stashes. The first guy I want to talk about is Zach Collins from the San Antonio Spurs. Everybody's talking about Jakob Poeltl being moved out of San Antonio. If that happens, there's going to be a clear runway for Zach Collins to give you some quality production down the stretch. He's a big man that can provide great field goal percentage, points, rebounds, and even some blocks. I would strongly consider picking him up for the stash. The next trade deadline stash we want to talk about is Mark Williams. Mark Williams is someone we've spoken about on this show before. He's a rookie with tons of upside, was drafted early, and I think he has a lot of potential. Listen, Mason Plumlee may get moved out of Charlotte. If he does, that's going to open up so much opportunity for Mark Williams. If he's available on your waiver wire, I would consider giving him a stash. I want to take a quick second to talk about Jock Market. Jock Market is a revolutionary daily fantasy sports platform that turns sports into a stock market. Jock Market, that's JOCKMKT, offers live daily markets for sports that let you buy and sell shares of fantasy athletes in real time with other users, all for real money. And each share has a guaranteed payout at the end of the night. If you're in the off season of your favorite sport, no worries. You can use Jock Market for NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, and even NASCAR. Download the Jock Market app on Android or iOS and use the promo code GAMEPICK. You receive a 100% deposit match up to $100. One more thing, your first market will also be risk-free with losses refunded up to $100. You literally have nothing to lose. To learn more, visit jockmarket.com and don't forget, use the promo code GAMEPICK. Next up, we want to talk about NBA fantasy buy lows and sell highs. Let's start off with our buy lows. The first guy I want to talk about is Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday was just named to the NBA All-Star team. Congratulations to him. But in the last couple of weeks in fantasy, he's not really been performing up to most people's expectations. With that being said, you might find an owner in your league who has some doubts, has some concerns. See if you can make a trade before the All-Star break. The next buy low candidate I want to talk about is another Milwaukee Buck, Chris Middleton. Everyone knows Chris Middleton is a stud. He puts up numbers. He's a monster. However, this season, he's been banged up. This season, he hasn't been performing. However, we're getting to that point of the season where he needs to get his legs under him so they can get ready to make a strong playoff run. Look for Chris Middleton to pick it up down the stretch of the fantasy basketball season. And if you're smart, you'll buy low on Chris Middleton today. The next buy low from the San Antonio Spurs, Trey Jones. The rookie has been putting up numbers all season. However, he's in a bit of a slump. If you can take advantage of this moment and send some of your lower tier guys over to see if you can get a trade, this will be an opportunity to buy low. The next buy low candidate is somebody that people are talking about in the Instagram DMs, on the Discord, also on our TikTok page, Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal has not been performing up to par this season. He's been banged up a lot, been a lot of different issues. However, this is the kind of guy who can be a first round value, right? He puts up those kind of numbers when he's healthy, when he's performing. So if you could get him at an extreme discount, I would make the leap and try to see if you can secure Bradley Beal in a buy low trade. Next up, our injury buy low of the week. This might be my last time saying this brother's name because I'm getting tired of it now. Karl Anthony Towns. And listen, we love Karl Anthony Towns, right? It's been weeks I've been telling you to buy low on him. I might have to put my foot in my mouth, y'all, because your man don't look like he's gonna play anytime soon. However, there is good news. CBS Sports reports that his return date is February 24th. So that's not like around the corner, but it is a date that works if you're trying to bring him back for the fantasy playoffs. So if you are in fact in a good position in terms of your playoff seeding right now, and you feel like you're comfortably going to make your playoffs, maybe he's still a buy low for folks. But I'm telling you guys, this might be the last week that we talk about Karl Anthony Towns as a buy low. Next up, let's talk about our NBA fantasy sell highs. The first guy I want to talk about is the one, the only, the king, LeBron James. Listen, everyone knows LeBron is pursuing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's record. So because of that, his numbers are a little inflated. Like, he's not the type of guy who's trying to have 5 games in a row scoring over 30 points, right? He's a facilitator, pass first kind of player, but he is beasting. And we've never seen anything like this. So if I have him, would know that, hey, down the line, once he gets this record, he might slow it down so he can maintain his body and stay healthy for the playoffs if the Lakers even make the playoffs. But it's something that you got to consider. Like, I know he's killing it right now, but if you can get a first round value for LeBron, even if you need to move a secondary piece in to secure the Joker, Giannis, or Luka, then I would make that move. The next sell high is Chris Paul. This man is timeless. I don't know what players are doing where they could reach the age of 38 and 39 years old and still perform on this level, but LeBron, Chris Paul, these guys are still doing it. With that being said, I would make a trade, move him while he's performing, sell high, because Chris Paul, like, habitually gets injured, right? Like he always gets injured. It's just like one thing is for sure. Anthony Davis and Chris Paul are going to get injured at some point in the season. Although Chris Paul has already been banged up, you never know. He could get hurt again. So if you can get some value back, I'd consider selling high on Chris Paul. The next sell high is Fred VanVleet from the Toronto Raptors. Freddie is not having the best year, right? But he's strung together a few good games. This might be an opportunity to get some value back. Like people love Fred VanVleet. He has great name value in fantasy. So you might be able to get back some solid producers if you move him right now as a sell high. Before we get to our next segment, I want to talk to you about Owner's Box. Owner's Box is an official sponsor of the Game Pick podcast, and we want to highlight their new one-of-a-kind fantasy sports format, Lightning Lineups. All you have to do is spin, pick, and win. Sign up right now and use the promo code GamePickPodcast. Owner's Box will match your first deposit up to $500. This is one of the largest deposit matches in the industry. Don't miss out. To sign up, just download the Owner's Box app on Android or iOS. And don't forget, use the promo code GamePickPodcast. Next up is our Discord Q&A. To join our free private Discord server of over 1,400 fantasy basketball fanatics, all you have to do is hit the link in the description of this episode. The first question is from Puxuel. That's Puxuel. He says, who's a point guard I should try to get? Because my point guards are Booker and Mitchell, and my small forwards are DeMar, Tatum, Butler, and maybe Jaylen Brown, because someone said Bam for JB. Should I try to get Fox after I get JB? Whoa, that's a lot. So let me just go with the who's a point guard I should try to get. The point guard I really love right now, two of them, Jalen Brunson, and I really love Darius Garland. Now, I'm not sure which of these guys you would try to move for them, but because it's a little muddled what you have here. But if you have Butler on your team, for sure, I'm moving Butler to get either one of those guys. So if you could send Butler over to bring one of those guys back, I would do it. And the person you're offering the trade might look at it as a win because Jimmy Butler's per game performances are really up there with those guys. However, his inconsistency in terms of health and resting, I just try to stay away from Jimmy Butler. So that's what I would do. I would target Garland or Brunson. The next question is from Money Murray. He says, how do I prepare for the playoffs? Do I keep a full squad or do I use some spots for streaming, and how many? Listen, that's a great question. For the playoffs, for the regular season, for fantasy basketball, especially if you're not doing roto leagues, right? You want to have a streaming spot, at least one streaming spot. So whoever your worst player is, even if it's somebody like if you're in an 8-man league, depending on the size of your roster, right? You might have to drop like somebody like Robert Williams might be your worst player. If in fact he is, that's something you need to do to win, especially if you're not able to secure wins week to week without playing the waiver wire. So that's why I say it at the end of every video, play the waivers because it's a critical part of the game. So to answer your question, yes, you need to stream. You can't just keep the same roster. And how many spots for the playoffs, especially in redraft leagues, any and everybody is droppable as you move along in the playoffs. So for example, if you're in the finals and you have 4 spots left in the last game on the last day of the week on Sunday, you can drop DeMar DeRozan if you have to. So the question is typically, the answer to the question, typically I usually keep about 2 to 3 spots to stream, but as you get further along in the playoffs, anybody is droppable in order for you to secure that championship. The next question is from Ryan. Ryan says, thoughts on Kyrie Irving and what would happen to his production on some of his new teams? Listen, if Kyrie gets traded this week, I don't think he's going to take too much of a hit in terms of his numbers. But depending where he lands, you might see a little bit of an uptick or you might see a little bit of a decrease. For example, if he gets traded to the Lakers, I imagine that some of his scoring is going to take a hit, especially if they keep AD and LeBron on the team. But if he ends up on a squad that doesn't have a star, let's say like, I don't know, like Utah or something like that, he could go bananas, and that, 32 points a game or whatever he's averaging could even go up. So you just got to really pay attention to where he lands. But I wouldn't make any moves on Kyrie Irving right now, because history shows that the Brooklyn Nets will not be bullied by their stars when they request a trade. KD requested a trade over the summer. They didn't move him. So just sit tight. Don't make any moves that are speculative moves. Wait until you get some concrete evidence. If you need help with your team, drop a comment with your question. I will answer every single comment on this episode. If you want to learn more about our proven strategy for executing fantasy sports trades, please check out the next episode that pops up on your screen. And don't forget, play the waivers, set your lineups, and follow Game Pick, you frickin' fantasy nerd.